Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of All Things Crime. Man, I'm excited to be here with you this morning, and I've got a great guest coming up. But before we get into Burgess Owens, who is our guest in these next few episodes, I wanted to kind of give you a little context, and so I'm going to be doing that. Talk about our trip to Panama that we made last year, and kind of give you a little context of why I wanted Burgess to be on our show. I mean, the man's a Super Bowl champion and now a congressman, but what does he have to do with crime? And that's one of the reasons that I'm going to bring you up to speed on our relationship and how we met and all that kind of stuff. So, but before that, I want to talk about Pure Gold Forensics. Pure Gold Forensics is a private crime lab in Redlands, California. That's the Los Angeles area. And they are our sponsors for this episode. And I have to tell you that these guys, I have recommended Pure Gold Forensics for, I don't know how many detectives have talked to us at MVAC Systems and asked us where to send their evidence to. And there's a few labs across the country, but one of the absolute best is Pure Gold Forensics. They're a fairly small lab, but their motto is one case, one scientist always. And I have to read a little bit about that. It said, "We are here to assist the legal community and ensure that true justice can be served." And as you know, with All Things Crime, one of the things that we emphasize is the victims of crime. And because a lot of times, we'll focus on the crime itself. We'll focus on who did it. But I think far too little emphasis is on the victims and the damage that even minor crimes and the violation that people feel. And to me, the way that Pure Gold Forensics goes about solving their crimes is just absolutely amazing, because the one scientist will follow the entire case, all the evidence, all the way through to the end, where they get the results of whatever the evidence produces. And to me, that's incredible. So it's almost like a personal services for, and very intimate, very one-on-one with Pure Gold Forensics. So it said, our state-of-the-art forensics DNA testing facility uses the latest technology and equipment and chemistry in order to produce quality results in an effective and timely manner. We pride ourselves as being the top forensics DNA experts in the field. It is our goal here at Pure Gold Forensics to treat each case with the attention and detail it deserves. And I will 100% second that. And if you have a case, you have evidence that maybe your state lab won't process or doesn't have time to, it's not going to get done in a timely manner, I highly recommend Pure Gold Forensics. And they are in Redlands, California. Their number is 909-793-3820. And their website is puregoldforensics.com. So if you have a case and you need some evidence processed, especially for DNA, highly recommend these guys. As the president of MVAC Systems, I'll tell you right now, not very many people across the country that are better at working evidence with the MVAC than Pure Gold Forensics. So, okay, let's move on to the episode this morning. And I have to tell you, Burgess Owens is just a class act. So if you guys remember, 2016, I think, is when it was. So in 2016, and I'll tell you why this is important too. And I'm a veteran. I'm a U.S. Army veteran That's how I kind of got started. My career has taken a lot of different turns, but a big thing that has helped to shape that career is my uh, being a veteran and my experience in the military. And one of the things that I think is critical, if you look at what you serve, so whatever it is that you serve, whether it be your family, whether it be your company, your job, whatever it is you put the most time and blood, sweat, and toil into, that is what you grow to love. And my experience in serving our country in the military helped to really formulate my a lot of my views, a lot of my background, but I love this country. I spent 14 years between active duty and reserves in the U.S. Army, and I'll tell you what, I loved this country before, and I was a Boy Scout. I did lots of things to always kind of I don't know how do you even go about this, but I've always respected and loved the country that I live in, and I hope all of you do too. Wherever you're from, anywhere in the world, I hope you're proud of where you're from, and I hope you're proud of your heritage. And I happen to be a U.S. citizen and grown, born and raised in Idaho, and that to me is, obviously, I believe that the United States is the greatest country on the world. But if you're from Australia or South Africa or the United Kingdom, we have listeners from all over the place there. I hope that you are proud of where you're from, and you should be, because each country has benefits of its own, and yeah, that's where you're from, and so be proud of that, and make it the best place that you can possibly make it, because when people serve their country, when people serve their family, serve their community, then that's what makes that community and that entity better. And I'll tell you, those that do serve, the loyalty and the things that they learn from that service is just absolutely incredible. And I highly recommend find a way to serve, everybody that's out there. So that's my little soapbox for. But anyway, that being a veteran. In 2016, when Colin Kaepernick, who was at the time the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, and I think he was like third string or something like that. I mean, he had little glimpses of greatness, but I think before too long, everybody figured out that this guy wasn't everything that he was saying that he was, and he definitely wasn't worth the money that they were paying him. But in 2016, he got the grand idea to start sitting during the national anthem. Now, whatever your views of this are, that's great. But these are my views, and if this being my podcast, this is the way I view things. There is a time and place to, and especially those of you that have a bigger platform like Colin Kaepernick did, there is a time and place for everything. But during the national anthem is not it. So during the national anthem is in my view, our time and our opportunity to show respect for the flag, show respect for those that have fought and died for that flag, and for the country, and for the anthem itself. If you listen to the words, the actual words of the national anthem, they are, they talk about struggle, they talk about overcoming, and I'll tell you, it's, to me, the national anthem and the U.S. flag, and that's why I have one behind me right now. To me, that's sacred, and kneeling during that time. It's one thing, to kneel is to show humility toward, show loyalty toward. That's not what he was doing. And so, I understand what his cause. I kind of understand, at least. At least I know he strongly believed in it. But regardless, to me, that's not the time and place to do it. And so there was a lot of controversy at the time, and it was interesting that if you look at it now, kind of what kneeling during the anthem is kind of morphed into. But regardless, at the same period of time, I started seeing, like, on ESPN and the news organizations, there was a gentleman named Burgess Owens, who was a former Super Bowl champion. He was a fantastic athlete, started at University of Miami, and was just, had a storied career. And he started appearing on these shows and talking about it. Now, the interesting thing about Burgess was his dad was a World War II veteran. He grew up in Florida, and he was basically saying the exact same thing that I was saying. So he was voicing this, and he had, obviously, ESPN is a huge audience and a great place to start expressing these concerns about kneeling during the anthem, and how it was so disrespectful to, in my opinion, it's disrespectful to the country. It's disrespectful to the anthem and the flag, but most importantly, it's disrespectful to all of the men and women that have died in order to make this country great. And so what Burgess was saying was really relating to me, and I wholeheartedly agreed to it. And the interesting thing was, as I, initially, when I would see him come on these programs, it was kind of just, listening to what he had to say. And then, I don't know, I'd probably seen him half dozen times. I noticed that in the background, it was Salt Lake City. And I was like, holy cow, why would he have Salt Lake City as a background? I mean, I knew he played at Oakland. I knew he, started at University of Miami, and that he was originally from Florida. So why would he have Salt Lake City as the background when he's appearing on these shows? And then, so I never really did figure that out. And then one day, as many of you know, I travel a lot for work. I was going through security at the Salt Lake City airport, and I looked up, and on the line next to me, there he was. Burgess Owens was going through security as well. And I was like, what? Holy cow, this guy's actually here. So I decided, you know what, I have to take advantage of this opportunity. And so we were going through at the exact same time. And so he was at the end picking up his bags, and I just walked over to him and I just said, hey, Mr. Owens, my name is Jared Bradley. I'm a veteran, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the messages that you have been, talking about, and how, the anthem is sacred to a lot of people, and just 100% agree with your views, and definitely appreciate everything that you've been saying, on these programs. And, he thanked me, and the truly amazing thing was how gracious he was. I'm sure Burgess gets approached by, and even before he became a congressman, I'm sure he was approached by lots of different people. And I know that he was late for his flight that day, so he was actually pushing the envelope to make his flight. But he still took a few minutes, and he actually took his Super Bowl ring off, put it on my finger, and he said, "Hey, let's take a picture." And so we took a selfie real quick, and he was just an amazing, gracious man, and I really respected that, and I really appreciated that. So that is back in 2000. I think that was 2017 or 2018. So, no, it was probably before that. Might even been 2016. I can't remember exactly, but it was long before I actually met him as a congressional candidate. So fast forward to 2019. Now, I live in Utah, And at the time, I wasn't real impressed with my congressman, uh, who won, I think, in 2014. So I didn't really like him, and I didn't really like a lot of the things that he stood for. He seemed like a rubber stamp for Nancy Pelosi, which those of you that have listened to the podcast know that I'm not a huge fan of Nancy Pelosi. So I wanted to figure out who I could support that was going to be running against the current congressman. So as I was looking through that the different people that were listed, I saw that Burgess Owens had thrown his hat in, and he was going to he was going to run for office in the 4th congressional district in Utah. And I was like, there we go. He's my man. So I called I called their office, and I said, hey, what can I do to help? So during the 2020, so it was 2019 basically, is when I actually started putting out signs and things for Burgess, and we've developed a pretty close relationship ever since. So it makes sense that with a lot of the things that he works toward and works for in Congress, and a lot of the things that he stood for, his during the 2019 and 2020 campaign, basically, it was faith, family, community, and I can't remember the other ones, but basically all things that I stand for as well. And the Fraternal Order of Police supported him both in Utah and nationally. And he's just very pro police. He's pro law, and not just law enforcement, but also obeying the law. And because he understands what it takes for people to excel. And the bottom line is, in order for all of us to prosper, we have to have a safe and secure environment in order to do that. And I've talked about that, in other episodes. And it's so important for us to understand that if we don't have safety and security, which is frankly provided by the police. Now, I understand there's a lot of people out there that, especially the libertarian types, that basically say, you know what, I have a weapon, I can provide my own security. We don't need the police. Well, that's really nice to say, and as long as you're strapped on and you can actually provide that security for your family, that's fantastic. And I highly encourage that. I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, and that's important for our freedoms. However, if you think you can stand guard 24/7 over your residence, your family, and your business, you're just living in a fantasy world. So having somebody that is commissioned to uphold the law and commissioned to actually enforce the law, which is basically our law enforcement, properly named, right? You have to have it. You have to have it. It doesn't matter if you go all the way back to the days of Tombstone. There's a reason that so many Westerns involve guys that were robbing trains, and also the marshals and the deputies and the sheriffs that were commissioned even back in the days of the Old West, where they were responsible for upholding the law and bringing criminals to justice. And it's always been the case. You've always had somebody in any kind of a society. I don't care if it's go back to the days of Great Britain and, the knights and the round table. And, you can go back to any point in history, and there is somebody there that was responsible for upholding basically the laws of whatever the land was. And it doesn't matter if it's the king or, the government of the United States. Somebody has to uphold the law. And frankly, if society as a whole doesn't support those law enforcement officers, then everything starts to fall apart. And frankly, we're seeing that right now. There's a lot of cities, especially around the country, and it's not, well, there's other places that have big problems. London's one of them, but there's a case just recently where a couple of brothers, I guess, up in Canada went on some crazy stabbing spree, and they killed like 10 people and injured another 15. And I last I heard, one of them, they found, I think he was, I'm not even sure. They found him deceased, but it wasn't self-inflicted. And so they're just trying to figure that out. But, if two brothers can basically maim or kill 25 people with knives, then yeah, those kind of guys not only are a clear and present danger, but also they need to be caught. And the people that catch them are going to be law enforcement. And that's exactly what happened. So back to our story here. So Burgess successfully was elected and became the congressman for the 4th district. And even as he was going back to Washington, D.C., I still stayed in touch with him, and I would stayed in touch with his office, got to know a lot of his staff, great people. And there was one, again, that was in 2020. Well, we also know that during the 2020 race, President Biden became our president. So President Biden obviously has a lot different philosophies and thoughts about the country, and especially thoughts about securing his community, which is the United States. And the southern border is a huge part of that. So I was reading that Burgess, and I follow Burgess on all of his social media, especially his Twitter account, which is, I think, where he's the most active. But so Burgess, I found out was headed down to the southern border. He was going with a number of other congressmen, including Congressman Tiffany out of Wisconsin, down to the southern border, because the border, the security of our border, the philosophy between President Trump and President Biden about the security of our border and the necessity of that security is dramatically different. And, almost from day one, when President Biden took over, things started being different at the southern border. And it was pretty obvious even during his campaign that he was talking about, they're welcoming in anybody from anywhere in the world and welcoming in lots more immigrants than what President Trump was doing. So I want to say April. So President Biden had only been in 3 or 4 months, and we had already started seeing just a dramatic shift in the number of people that were coming across the border, the number of drugs and human trafficking and problems that we started seeing at the border. He started reversing a lot of the policies, like the Stay in Mexico policy. He started changing all of that stuff. So I read that Burgess and a number of other congressmen and women were headed down to the border to actually see it for themselves. And the feedback that they got from down there was, this is becoming a major problem. Well, in the course of that, I was discussing the border problems with Burgess. And I brought up, I also had some friends that I knew that were reporting about that. And one of them in particular, a guy named Chuck Holton. So there's two major figures that are involved in this and that I had introduced to Burgess. And a good friend of mine, Ron Reese, had actually introduced me to Michael Yon. So Michael Yon is a world, he's known all over the place, and he is a war correspondent. He was a former special forces guy. And when he got out of the special forces, he became a war correspondent and was embedded with a lot of the troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. And a lot of the really amazing pictures that you see coming out of those wars, Michael Yon actually took those. So being a former special forces, Green Beret, he was able to get into a lot of situations that other war correspondents just, they would just never go. But totally makes sense. I mean, Michael, being a former military guy himself, he knows how to not only interact with the military, but also knows how to keep himself from getting shot, basically. And so he can get into situations that just your standard reporter just can't. So Ron introduced me to Michael, and I was corresponding with him quite a bit over the years. And then, but I knew that Michael was also reporting about the border and the number of illegal immigrants that were starting to flow across the border. But along with that, creates a lot of chaos. And when you have illegal things that are happening, but in direct association and at the same time, I mean, I understand why a lot of these immigrants want to come to the United States. It's always been that way. I mean, I grew up in Idaho. There were illegal immigrants and people that would come across the border in order to work on the farms, and that's always been the case. I worked alongside a lot of those guys when I was in high school. I used to move pipe and pick rock and work on farms. I did that side by side with a lot of these guys. And some of the hardest working people you will ever meet anywhere in the world are some of these migrants that are coming across, and specifically to work in different industries, especially on the farms and things. Well, not everybody has that kind of an attitude, and some of these illegal immigrants that are coming across are, they're not the hardworking types. They are the type that want to bring drugs across. They want to just live on welfare. There's some that actually want to come to the United States and cause major damage. There's all sorts of stories right now about immigrants that are coming across. They're on the terror watch list. Well, that's always been the case, and we just didn't hear about them very much in past years because the numbers weren't there. The type of and the numbers that are coming across right now are staggering compared to what they were just a few short years ago. So we have to put all of this in context. Well, back in 2020, we kind of saw the writing on the wall, and we knew that this, if it wasn't put some pretty serious checks on it and actually make some major efforts to turn things around, that it was going to get really bad. Well, we look back on it now. That was a year and a half ago. I mean, now we have tens of thousands coming across every day, and it used to be maybe tens of thousands per month. But now it's just completely out of control. And we saw that. We knew it was coming. And, Burgess and these other Congress people, they were talking about it, and they wanted to go down there and see it for themselves. Well, once I had seen their report, basically, and the way they were, talking to the news and things, I put Burgess in touch with Michael Yon, and in conjunction with Michael Yon is Chuck Holton. By the way, both Michael and Chuck have YouTube channels, and they do a lot of stuff. I can't remember the other platforms, but if you look up Chuck Holton on YouTube, you'll see all of his videos. And Chuck is a former Army Ranger, and he's gone all over the world reporting on these kind of things too. And so it totally makes sense that he and Michael would be doing things together whenever possible, and they do, and they're both amazing guys. So I put Congressman Owens in touch with these guys, and at the time they were talking about Panama and how a lot of these migrants that ultimately end up at our southern border are coming across from Colombia into Panama through what's called the Darien Gap. Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.